There are rumors abounding. Feelings are exploding. And if even half of what is being shouted over hip-hop and love sets is accurate, Ciara's startling accusation may have just hit a breaking point in the fallout. According to insiders, Mendeecees is finally speaking out behind the scenes after days of humiliation, criticism, and seeing his name dragged through the mud. Mendeecees recently told producers, "I want Ciara off the show. Not in passing, not in frustration, but as a serious demand. And that's not even the half of it." Word has it that the tension has gotten so bad that even Yand, who is typically cool, collected, and calculated, lost it. According to sources, she almost got violent with Ciara when she confronted her off-camera. According to fans on set, Yandi yelled, "You don't get to lie on my husband," and walk away, and one cast member had to restrain her. The atmosphere was allegedly scary. Some are describing it as the most dramatic love and hip-hop meltdown since the Joe's Line era. Here's the question, though. When the cameras weren't rolling, what actually happened? And why do some producers feel that this season has stretched itself too thin? We're dissecting everything we've heard thus far, even for them. After the first eruption between Mendeecees and Ciara, they believed the tension had subsided. The majority of the crew thought that things were finally leveling out after the podcast. The leaked video and the mediator session. Rumor had it that the production would genuinely make things right and get everyone back into the filming schedule as if nothing had happened. 2 days later, however, that illusion was dashed when Mendeecees entered the production trailer and announced without raising his voice, "I want her off the show." Those 5 words were the turning point in the production. It took a while for the producers in that trailer to respond. A few looked at one another. Others hesitated, wondering if he was being serious or only venting. Mendeecees wasn't pacing, though. He wasn't shouting. He remained motionless and composed, but resolute. He spoke in a quiet, purposeful tone. "You allowed her to deceive me. You allowed her to misrepresent me on camera. People are now staring at me as if I were a menace. I won't be recording any more scenes until you all take action." The fact that Yandi was standing behind him with her arms crossed and an unreadable expression only made things worse. She didn't speak out. She made no additions. However, the expression in her eyes indicated that this was no longer just about TV. It was a personal matter, and people were aware of when Yandi's silence indicated that something was about to happen. There were already rumors going around. Someone from the Glam team leaked a voice memo the previous evening that purportedly stated, "I'm done being classy about it, but next time I see her, it's on site." The voice memo spread through fan groups and Twitter threads. Half of the internet was certain that Yandi and Ciara had already battled off camera before daybreak. However, it nearly happened. Therefore, the actual event was worse than that. The group had been invited in for a short promotional shot on what was intended to be a tranquil reset day. Just some new green screen confessionals and B-roll. Nothing major and no confrontations planned. Ciara was the first to show up, pretending nothing had occurred. She sipped green juice while browsing through her phone, corrected her cosmetics, took selfies with her assistant, and laughed with the team. Since the release of the mediator footage, she had remained silent, but fans felt that she was arrogant. One user wrote, "If you ever cried wolf for clout, this is what it looks like." Mendeecees and Yandi showed up there almost an hour later. Her comment sections were a mix of vitriol and support. Their call times somehow crossed, whether on purpose or by accident, and that's when the sparks struck the gasoline. They weren't supposed to be on the same set as Ciara that day. Some people claim that it began when Yandi saw Ciara on the other side of the room. Yandi stopped. She squinted. Mendeecees shook his head softly, as if he didn't want anything else to happen, and she muttered something to him. However, Yandi had had enough. According to one crew member, you could see it in her shoulders as she began to approach Ciara cautiously. Ciara didn't first see that she was taking off her earrings. As she stepped, Something on her phone made her laugh. "Hello?" The makeup artist abruptly retreated. And as she looked up, she noticed Yandi approaching. "Oh, you're brazen now." Yandi's voice was loud enough to be heard by everybody. "You believe that you can make fun of my husband on television and pretend like nothing is wrong." Sierra rose, her voice piercing. "Yandi, this isn't the place or the time." It was neither the location nor the moment when you Yandi retorted. "Neither did you lie. Still, you did it." Already, a camera was in motion. Someone had struck out of impulse. Note, the moment they noticed Yandi coming, they assumed it would be simply another heated moment and nobody wanted to miss it. They were mistaken though, since what followed left the entire room paralyzed. Yand and Dai moved forward so closely that they could hardly breathe. She held up her hand without swinging it. Not yet, but it was enough to get a producer to shout, "Get her back now." Rashida, one of the cast members, apparently rushed forward and physically pulled Yandi back by putting her arms around her waist. "You won't ruin everything you've worked so hard to achieve." Yandi was shaking, not from fear, but from rage, as Rashida continued to exclaim, "Not for her, not like this. She attempted to destroy us." She repeated herself. She grinned while lying to him. "Do you think I'll overlook that?" Sierra remained motionless. She simply stood there with her lips closed and her eyes wide. She didn't have a response for once. Perhaps she believed Yandi would never truly act in such a way. After the mediation scene, she might not have anticipated this level of pressure. However, the energy had changed. The whole team sensed it. When things became that heated, the producers left the set right away. They all went to their own holding rooms. Confessionals were canceled. The level of security was tripled, and a fresh choice had already been chosen by the time the situation subsided. An emergency conference with the entire cast was required. The executive producer, who had flown in after learning how awful things had gotten, had the idea. He didn't want actual violence or lawsuits to break out. Above all, he did not want to lose two of the most prominent stars on the show. However, the response was immediate when he asked Mendeecees to have another meeting with Sierra. Mendeecees responded bluntly, "No, this cannot be healed. Either I walk or she is removed." The producer made an effort to diffuse the tension. "Perhaps the narrative can be controlled. Perhaps we might bring a present from outside." Once more, "The fans listen to you. I've heard it already." Yandandi stood behind him the entire time, mouth clenched and arms crossed, as Mendeecees stated. "And I'm not going to keep repeating myself so she gets another storyline out of my pain." She remained silent throughout that exchange. However, as the producer turned to face her, perhaps seeking support, she leaned in and said something that nobody anticipated. "We both go if she remains." It was more than just a danger. It was true, and the entire production was affected by the weight of those remarks. The problem was obvious now. Either keep Sierra and risk losing the support of seasoned cast members and the trust they earn from fans, or let her go and face the fallout from terminating a woman who still had a fan base and had made a claim. He had no desire for music. He wants a final, authentic, and raw dot. The network hesitated. They were aware of Mendeecees' influence among the fans. Spo carried a lot of weight, and if he said something incorrectly, it might ruin the entire season. They were aware, however, that they would never be able to quiet him, not with everything he'd already experienced. Thus, they concurred. With Yandi at his side and a silent producer who seemed to not want to be there. He entered the soundstage without an entourage, stylist, or managers. Mendeecees sat down with her elbows on as the camera began to roll. On his knees, gazing directly ahead. "I returned to this concert because I wanted to demonstrate my progress to the audience. I wanted others to witness development, reconciliation, and forgiveness. However, I can't continue to sit here and allow people to disparage my reputation, my marriage, and my character in order to get ratings because of what happened this season." He took a moment to swallow, then went on. Sierra's actions were not fleeting. It was a decision. She continued to stand. I made her feel physically unsafe, according to what camera Ann said. And whether she intended to or not, she gave the impression that I touched her. As she remained mute, she allowed that story to propagate. Then, as if it didn't matter, she laughed. Yandi had her arms folded across her chest as she stood behind the camera. She had never seen him talk without a filter or hesitation before. No argument could penetrate the quiet sadness in his voice. I kept my hands off her. She offended my family, so I confronted her rather than threatening her. And you have me perplexed if you believe that by dragging me through the mud, I will allow someone to become famous. I'm making it clear. Then Sierra should not be on the show. The 6 words reverberated louder than a brawl. It was never intended for the footage to air. However, within a day, it was leaked by a factory worker, and once it was posted online, it became viral. It was now confirmed to fans who were already doubting Sierra's story that Mendeecees was no longer keeping quiet. They deluged her old photos comment section. The network was marked. They began using hashtags such as Sierra Got to Go and Protect Mendeecees. But Yand was the true surprise. Yand was working behind the scenes, while Mendeecees struggled with his words. In addition to making demands, she contacted production staff and provided them with screenshots, voicemails, receipts, and text messages from other cast members acknowledging that Sierra had informed them she intended to briefly check on Mendeecees. On camera, messages from the overheard glam crew she was practicing her words. Additionally, a stylist claimed that the day before filming, Sierra informed her, "I'm about to make headlines. Just wait." This is a terrifying voice note. Everything changed. Because of those receipts, the network was no longer able to ignore it. Executive producers, legal counsel, and talent coordinators were summoned to an urgent meeting. Whether Sierra had gone too far was not the topic of discussion. It concerned the appropriateness of the repercussions. We can't just fire her, not without a legal case. We don't need to fire her, one executive stated. Then, suddenly, someone else stepped in. Queen Key. She hadn't been directly involved in the situation, but she had been watching, and apparently she had her own history. With Sierra. One night she went live on Instagram, and what she said sent fans reeling. Another person responded, "Just ice her out, move her to background scenes, and phase her out quietly." She started by saying, "I'm not saying Sierra is lying, but I will say this. She knows how to play the victim. She did it to me too. She tried to change the narrative so that I was the one who was acting aggressively. Like I was the one who was out and wild, and she's good at it. Real good." Fans clipped the live stream and shared it all over the internet. Some people criticized it as being shady, while others said Queen Key was simply stating the facts. But it increased the pressure, which eventually reached Sierra. "I never meant to hurt anybody. I just told my truth." But no one was buying it anymore. After days of silence, she shared a single Instagram story with a black screen and white text. Behind the scenes, Sierra was falling apart. Her team had told her to keep quiet so she wouldn't say anything that could be interpreted as a lie. But that silence had turned into guilt by omission. Her closest cast friends had stopped calling. Glam artists were canceling bookings, and producers weren't responding to her texts. In a private conversation with her manager, Sarah broke down, saying, "I didn't think it would get this far, and I just wanted a moment." And then she learned about the footage. Apparently, someone on the crew had saved a longer version of the scene. Not just the moment she confronted Mendeecees, but the let-up, the glances, the pacing, and the quiet. "Watch this," she whispered to her assistant off camera. The footage hadn't been aired yet, but producers were debating it. Her manager stated bluntly, "Well, you got one on set. You saw how close I was to slapping her. And the worst part is, I still feel like I should have," Yandi told Rashida one afternoon. "You did the right thing," she said, adding, not because Sierra had lied, but because she had moved as if nothing had happened, smiled through it, and, worst of all, continued to show up for set. It's like she gets to keep her seat at the table. "While we carry the shame," Nandi muttered, "you walked away. And now they're acting like I need to calm down." Like she didn't like the match in the first place. The cast was split. Some took sides with Yandi and Mendeecees, while others remained silent so as not to be pulled into the storm. However, the atmosphere was heavy, and everyone could sense it. There was no going back to normal. Because this wasn't just this was war. The tension on set was suffocating. What had once been a chaotic but familiar rhythm had given way to sides, whispered warnings, and multiple security guards standing in corners where no one had ever needed them before. Instead of laughing in between takes, everyone was checking. Who was confused, watching where Yandandi was, where Sierra was, and who was standing too close to either of them. Production. The only person watching him was Yandi. Since his raw video leaked, Mendeecees had not returned. Even though she was choosing to remain silent rather than provide updates, he was clearly not finished. According to an insider, he was working behind the scenes to pressure the network into not only removing Sierra from group scenes, but also issuing a private apology to him and his family. From what people were hearing, he wasn't bluffing. The network was shaken. Their golden couple had turned against them. What was supposed to be another dramatic season had become a potential public scandal. They knew that conflict brought ratings, but they also knew that there was a line, and they had allowed Sierra to cross it on camera without pulling her back. Now they were paying the price. Yandi, for her part, was appearing as if nothing had changed, but everyone could tell that she was. Everyone in the room held their breath when she locked eyes with Sierra across the hallway of the makeup trailer. Sierra didn't look afraid exactly, more like cautious, like she wasn't sure how far Yandi would go this time. And the truth is, neither was anyone else. She was speaking to producers only when absolutely necessary, and she kept her hands locked in front of her chest as if to prevent them from doing what her mouth wouldn't. The room fell silent as one of the producers nearby stepped in and said, "Ladies, can we not?" Yandi asked, not loudly but sharply enough to cut the air. Sierra rearranged her ponytail. "Eli still casts, doesn't he?" "Barely," Yandi shot back. "I'm good." Yandi raised a hand, checking what kind of woman smiles through a lie. Sierra didn't. She turned back to the mirror and went back to touch-up, but her hand was trembling a little as she picked up her lip gloss, knowing that the cracks were visible on more than just her face. Backstage, more people were talking, and an intern heard a VH1 employee admit that they were under pressure from talent representation to decide Sierra's status. Another assistant said that a crew member close to editing had stated that there were several versions of the episode, where the footage could be cut to either protect or expose her completely, and the decision hadn't been made yet. However, a new leak uploaded an extended audio clip that was almost 90 seconds long. It wasn't video, just sound. The hashtags came back stronger than ever. Producers started getting calls from sponsors demanding answers. Some cast members threatened to pull out of future scenes if Sierra was present, and finally, the network gave in. Sierra laughed to her assistant before the cameras rolled, saying this was going to get people talking, and then she practiced the exact words she used later on Mendeecees. The audio was crystal clear. The damn fans exploded. She planned it. The news spread quickly, and Yandi didn't smile when she received the call. Instead, he read it, set the phone aside, and gazed off into the horizon for a while before muttering to himself, "They're finally paying attention." Sierra, however, was losing her mind. Minutes before the leak became viral, she had been informed about it. She called her manager after seeing missed calls, texts from people she hadn't spoken to in weeks, and a simple message from her assistant that read, "We're in trouble." He didn't answer. She left a voicemail for her PR. She instantly regretted. Opening the Instagram app, the video was all over the place, reposted by verified accounts, blogs, influencers, and fan sites. The remarks were harsh. A man's reputation for influence was ruined by you. Now you pretend to cry. We recognize you. She disabled her comments by nightfall within a few hours. Scara didn't submit a remark. She posted a tale. Once more, it's simply a dark screen. Just silence. No text. It's a sort of guilt-inducing silence. Yan saw it whether she intended to or not. After watching the article, she sent Mendeecees the link. He remained silent. He simply double-tapped the message and resumed his task. They both realized then that a post would not repair the damage. The cast started to break even more. Bambi tweeted a screenshot of Sierra's leaked audio with the caption, "So, you're going to keep acting like this?" Erica Mena wrote in a tweet, "One thing about Kara, she always comes with receipts. She didn't tag anyone. She didn't have to. Dot ain't real." Scrappy enjoyed the post. Dot. The producers were losing control of their own show. Scenes had to be rewritten, call times had to be shuffled, and new plot lines were drafted simply to fill the void left by Sierra. Despite everything, Yandere remained calm and collected, but everyone could sense that she was suppressing a war. One afternoon, as she was getting ready for a new green screen confessional, the director asked if Yandy wanted to bring up the subject. "No," she replied flatly, "not even to correct the record." She said, "My record isn't crooked," as she stared directly into the camera. The story had completely changed, with Mendeecees being hailed as the most composed man on reality TV. Yandy being commended for remaining firm without losing his cool, and Sierra once regarded as a rising voice of the franchise. Now trending as the most divisive cast member in recent memory? With that, she gave them what they needed. A line more powerful than any monologue. Fans were consuming it. According to Dot, Sierra had always believed in controlling the narrative. Ever since she first joined the show, she had played the game like a strategist, being emotional when necessary, savage when the cameras demanded it, and silent when the backlash came too quickly to outrun. However, this time, nothing was working. Sierra was allegedly planning her own video, at a confessional, not a cast interview, but a personal video where she would speak freely, give her version, and drop her own receipts, whether it would help or hurt her even more. After avoiding every call, avoiding every camera, and watching her followers drag her name through the dirt for days, she decided to fight back the only way she knew how, with her own version of the truth. No producers, no makeup, no script. Just her, her phone, and a dark hotel room. The video she recorded was raw. Her voice cracked in the first minute, and her eyes were red. The leaked audio had destroyed every shred of credibility she believed she had. The fans weren't buying her silence, the cast wasn't supporting her, and the network had begun treating her like a liability instead of a star. "I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this season hasn't broken me," she began. "I've been called every possible name manipulator, liar, clout chaser, but no one's even asked me what I was feeling in that moment. They just decided what it was." Taking a moment to gather herself, she said, "I never said Mendeecees put hands on me." She continued by saying that the leaked audio was taken out of context, that she jokes before scenes to calm her nerves, and that she never meant to make it seem rehearsed. With a soft but shaky whisper, she concluded the video, saying, "I'm not perfect, but I'm not evil either." The video went viral before sunrise, and within an hour, it had over 200,000 views. Some people expressed sympathy, while others doubled down on their hate. Then there were the ones in the middle. Mendeecees was even more direct, posting a quote on his Instagram story, "Remorse without accountability is manipulation." He didn't tag her or mention the video, but the message was loud. The network was now in a panic. Their attempt to control the fire had only added more fuel. Sponsors were becoming nervous again, and polls showed a steep drop in trust around the brand. Those who said it was all just too messy to know what was real anymore were correct. However, the cast wasn't confused when the video was sent into the group thread the producers used to schedule filming. Yandi didn't even reply. She simply left the chat and everyone noticed. Producers knew they needed to move quickly, so they decided to hold a closed-door cast summit. No cameras, no crew, just the main players in one room. Supervised, mediated, and off the record. It was no longer about filming, but about survival. The meeting took place at a quiet event space outside Atlanta. No signage, no promo. Everyone arrived separately under strict security. The seating chart was set before anyone arrived, and Mendeecees and Yandandi sat on one of the chairs. Sierra was seated at one end of the table with Rashida, Kirk, Scrappy, and a few neutral producers seated between them. A trained conflict mediator, not the same one from before who was brought in by VH1. Corporate someone who was totally unrelated to the show sat at the front of the table. The session started. With a disclaimer, no quotes or footage would be shown, but the goal was to restore enough peace to keep this season going. Yend remained silent for the first half hour, allowing Mendeecees. The drama on this program never stops, so turn on your notifications. Simply awaits the subsequent scene.